Okay, I am. Our mission. Helping Parents Heal is a nonprofit organization dedicated to assisting bereaved parents to become shining light parents by providing support and resources to aid in the healing process. We go a step beyond other groups by allowing the open discussion of spiritual experiences and evidence for the afterlife in a non-dogmatic way. Affiliate groups welcome everyone, regardless of religious or non-religious background. Attendance today at this meeting is voluntary, and we are here for the benefit of learning from and sharing with other parents whose child has passed away. It is understood that our discussions are intended to be confidential and not designed to replace traditional therapy or spiritual counseling. However, these Zoom meetings are very helpful to parents all around the world, and they are posted on YouTube so that affiliate members who are not able to attend this meeting live can also watch. Helping Parents Heal offers a wide variety of speakers to allow parents to be informed about many possible ways to heal, to connect with their children, and to learn about the afterlife. The views expressed by our guests do not necessarily reflect those of Helping Parents Heal, and we ask that you take from their presentations whatever may benefit you personally. I just want to take a moment and thank both Jackie and Gordon for being here this evening, this afternoon. It's such an honor to have you here. And I wanted to let everyone know who's on this meeting that Gordon has agreed and Jackie will be coming with him to, Gordon will be a keynote speaker at our conference next August. So thank you so much. I'll turn it over to you.
We are so thrilled about that. And I'm going to do a very short introduction of Gordon. I know that everybody here already knows all about him, but he has such an incredible bio. He's hailed by the UK's media as Britain's most accurate medium. There is no doubt that Gordon Smith is the real deal. Internationally recognized as one of the world's leading psychic mediums, spiritual teachers, and author of over 20 books that have sold over 1 million copies in many different languages, which have earned him the reputation of being an authentic, all-around expert in spiritual awareness and psychic studies. Gordon's reputation of being accurate and authentic has meant that he is constantly in demand, presenting as well as featuring in numerous television documentaries and shows about the paranormal for broadcasters such as the BBC, ITV, Sky, Living, and BioChannel. Developing his own self-awareness training programs has allowed Gordon to travel the world many times, demonstrating his mediumship and teaching international students. These teachings have been converted into highly successful online courses, which attract thousands of students from across the globe. And you can learn more about Gordon at his website, www.gordonsmithmedium.com. I'll write that into the chat box. And without further ado, please join me and Irene in welcoming Gordon Smith. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Elizabeth. Thank you, Irene. It's a pleasure, as always, to speak for this absolutely inspiring group. Jackie, who hosts all my Zoom work, and I had the privilege of sharing 6 weeks teaching with a lot of you guys, and we both agreed it was really and truly a pleasure and one of the nicest things that we've ever got to do. Is that true, Jackie?
Yeah, I think it was, we said it's our favorite group, but please
Absolutely.
don't tell anybody else.
Yes. And I'm introducing Jackie at the moment because later as we go, there will be an opportunity for questions. And I'm just going to ask Jackie if she will explain our process. I'm sure you know it, but I'll let Jackie tell you what our protocol is. Jackie, thanks.
Thank you. Good evening or good afternoon, everybody. It's wonderful to be back with you all. I know we have a lot of people with us today. So when we get the opportunity later for you to speak with Gordon, if you would like to ask a question, we ask you to raise a virtual hand. This is because we won't be able to see everybody on our main screen. There are at least 5 screens this evening. If you raise a virtual hand, you will come to the front of the screen. We can ask you to unmute and you can interact with Gordon. And to do that, if you look under reactions, questions, and you should see there, you should be able to raise a hand. If you get desperate and can't do that, send me a quick chat and I'll do my best to get you speaking with Gordon. But have a wonderful session, and back to you, Gordon.
Thank you, Jackie. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, as always, it's a pleasure to speak on behalf of the spirit world, because I'm not somebody who believes in life after death. I'm somebody who knows there's a life after death. And therefore, for me, I act as ambassador for the spirit world. And it's not a belief system. It's not something I think might be, due to the weight of evidence that I've been allowed to experience and take part in my life. I am beyond belief, beyond any reasonable doubt that our consciousness lives on after the physical death. I'm not the first person to know that. There are many people throughout the history of humankind on this planet who have known that when we leave this body or consciousness, the living stream of the personality that we are continues to go on. There are many different concepts about an afterlife in different cultures, from different teachers around the world, different religions. But all in all, there are more people today believe that life continues after physical death than don't. And that's a good thing, because if we can truly start to understand why that's an important thing, it's important only when it actually touches your life. When you grow up as a young person, you tend not to think about death or the afterlife if your life has not been visited by death. You go through your life totally ignorant to what happens after we die. But I think in every life, there comes a point when we ask that question, whether it's because we are so connected in love with someone that we dread the thought of losing them, or whether it's because we've had tragedy visit our lives and somebody close to us has been taken away. Then we are forced to look up and ask that question. Is there more to life than this? Is there something that happens after we die? As a young lad, just a boy, I had my first ever spiritual experience, I would call it, this knowing, when I had a visitation, an absolute vision, three-dimensional solid vision of a family friend who had just gone into the afterlife. As a child, I had no knowledge that this man had died, but he was a close friend in connection to my parents. Just after he died, his spirit, living spirit, I have to say, visited me as a young boy at 7, standing in broad daylight in a street in Glasgow. And then I saw this man whom I always welcomed to our home because he was a kind man. He was someone who loved children, and we all gathered round him when he came, like the Pied Piper. He attracted people. He was a charismatic soul. And therefore, just as I would in any other occasion, I felt drawn to him. Only this time I realized I couldn't move. My feet had become somewhat rooted to the ground, as though I was just held in a moment in space and time. And he instead came towards me, almost floating, though as a 7-year-old boy, I didn't really know why that was, but I just had this beautiful experience of this soul, living soul, light and texture, light and luminosity, light and density, yet the real true character of this wonderful man. And he sung a little song to me, and it made me laugh as a little boy. And he sung something, I will be buried in Dalbeth. It meant nothing, but it made me happy because it was a happy sound he was making. It was only after the experience that I realized his mouth wasn't moving when he sung. The words seemed to be coming from somewhere else. And it was a really strange experience that now I'm almost 60, and even as I tell that account, it's as real today as it was when I was 7 years old. Because the real spiritual experiences don't actually go away. They don't get folded down somewhere in your mind like normal thoughts. They actually are living thoughts because they came from the living. And that was how I started to see the spirit world. When I ran indoors to tell my mother that I had seen her friend and that he sung this song, she panicked. And that was the first time I saw somebody's reaction to hearing that there was a life after death or a spirit visitation. My mother dropped a knife that she had in her hands as she was peeling potatoes. She was in absolute shock and horror because, unbeknownst to myself or anyone else, she and my father had collected all the money they had, which wasn't much, to get this man buried because he had no money. And because he was a friend of the family, they were the only ones who could pay for the poorest funeral in the poorest cemetery in Glasgow, which was called Dalbeth. They never told anyone because they were ashamed of it. And here was this man coming, singing a happy song about it. And for me, he was coming to thank my parents. That's what I believe. And it was only as they grew older, they told me, we are so glad that you told us that, because we were ashamed that that was all the money we had. But from a child's mouth, from a 7-year-old, to tell them that, and I could tell them exactly what he was wearing, and it was the clothes that he was found in when he died suddenly. All of these little things from that age onward told me that there was something different. I've always been considered a bit different in my own family, but then for many different reasons, I'm sure. But the first was that I was the 7th son of a 7th son. And in Scotland, people think, wow, 7 children, but in Scotland and Ireland, and probably parts of southwest England and Wales, that would have been considered quite a big pagan thing. And the midwife who delivered me, apparently, the story goes, she was Irish, and she said to my mother, "Oh, good God, the 7th of the 7th, this child is born with the sight. He has the sight," and that's what they called it, clairvoyance. And I remember hearing these stories as a child when I, as I got older, and it was things like that they were there, and people would look at me because I was a kind of strange child in the way that I sort of observed the world from a distance. A bit like the psychoanalyst Carl Jung said, I was more than one personality living in this body. I had an adult personality that assumed things and assessed things, and a childlike personality that played and feared and reacted emotionally. And therefore, I kind of was already developing spiritually. But it wasn't until I was somewhere around the age of 21 that my best friend's brother died in a house fire. And it was at that time, right at that moment of his death, he appeared in my bedroom. And that was the first time as an adult I'd seen a full-blown visitation of spirit. And I was startled, to say the least. When people say it must have been frightening, it was not frightening. When you learn to understand your emotions, you become aware that being startled is different from being afraid. Being afraid and being frightened is something that's deep within you, and it causes all sorts of negative reactions. Being startled just means you're shocked in a moment. And that's what I was. I was shocked because this guy who I only knew briefly, but I was very connected to his sister, and he appeared at 4 o'clock in the morning in my bedroom, just standing there. But this time, unlike my first visualized sight, this one was glowing. He actually was iridescent and had this kind of inner light shining through him. He didn't speak. Instead, he folded his arms and he smiled. And then he dissolved through my floor. And again, I was shocked and startled at this. And I remember my heart was racing, really, really racing. And again, we put that down to fear. But as I have grown through my own spiritual development, I've realized that was not fear. What I was feeling was the heightened energy that occurs when the spirit come close to us. I would assume when any of you have felt your loved ones coming close, your heart feels like it's racing. Yet if we were to monitor your heart in that moment, you would find it's not your heart. It's actually your own light body, the part of you that the spirit can activate when they come close to you. So as a child, I had several of these experiences through into my young adulthood. And it started to become familiar that, wow, I actually feel something incredible happening and occurring whenever there's a spiritual experience. And it was not scary anymore. Not that it was, but it didn't even have any bearing of fear attached to it. The whole thing was exhilarating, because after a spiritual experience, you are left electrified. You are left with a sense of wow. You don't wonder, you just wow. That's it. It's a sense of wow, because something of a very high nature has touched your mind. And that's what happens when the light of spirit touches your light body or aura. These kind of experiences led me to develop what I do, my own abilities as a medium. And I say abilities as a medium because you can't call it a gift until you share it. A real spiritual gift is only a gift when it is shared. And therefore, I developed mine and I worked at it and I did my due diligence and I practiced for 7 years and I learned in every way I could. I studied my mind. I processed all my own behavior. It wasn't just learning about mediumship. It was learning about me, because my teacher told me this gift that you are processing and will eventually work with will be something that people will depend on. So you must make the best version of yourself in order to use that and allow people to benefit from it. It can't be about you. You need to learn to dissolve you so that everything that's happening with it is coming from a spirit world that knows better than you how to heal people using this wonderful link between the two worlds. When we work as mediums, guys, this is what's incredible. We open up an amazing energy between the two worlds, a thin place where two worlds meet, a place where those that we've loved and lost, we think we've lost, actually are waiting there. And they know how to make that veil part in moments when you need it most. And they can find the right moment, find the right medium, and find the opportunity to allow all these elements to come together and open up to say, we are here. We didn't die. We haven't died. Remember my own words, you cannot die. You cannot die for the life of you. Your life force goes on and will go on again and on again. And what we think is happening in this world is held within the boundary of belief. So we've got to learn to get beyond belief. I believe this. No, you don't. You experience something. Therefore, you know. And that's where the word understanding comes from. We stand under knowledge. We understand. This is where it comes from. And it comes from there because that's a feeling. It's not a lesson. It's not a theory. It's an amazing moment in your history. And sometimes when you've lost somebody so close to you and you cannot understand anything, the amount of people out there who immediately fall out with God or anything they've practiced right in that moment. And it's very understandable to take that position. I don't trust God who's taken my child. I don't trust the God that's not allowed me to say goodbye. Why would God do this? And why would God do that? And we make these cases against the God. But in actual fact, a life that's lived till its full experience will learn that every single moment, the good, the bad, the high, the low, each one has a perfect significance. And that you will grow from something. You will feel pain in this life, but you will grow. And you will experience something that somebody else has not yet experienced. And because of that, if your mind is then taken onto the right road and understanding that they haven't actually died, that there is another lesson for you to find a way to communicate with them and allow them to communicate with you, then it changes your direction. It doesn't take away grief. No one should ever say they can take away your grief. And I certainly wouldn't trust anyone who tells you that. They can't. And no payment of anything can take that away. Guys, grief is a thing we experience. And I always say to people, if you live long enough in this world, you're going to grieve. You're going to lose somebody. The longer you live, the more likely there is that we're going to lose loved ones. And that is a natural part of our life. A mother once said to me, you know what? She said, when I lost my mother and father, it felt natural. They were elderly people. She says, but when my son died, I couldn't understand it. Why was that? And I remember this poor lady's anger. And again, very justified anger, because I suppose losing a child is a bit like having a child. You're a parent for the first time when you have a child, and there's no right way or wrong way to be a parent. It's the way that occurs and the things, choices you make. And the same applies when a child dies. It's the first time you've lost a child. And your behavior is basically what you respond to and the choices you make after that. But the one thing that I have been blessed to be able to do is to come into the lives of people and bring about opportunity to change people's idea of loss and the afterlife. Because it was never clear to me when I was starting this, the importance of it. It wasn't. I knew there was something important, but it was never that clear. And then all of a sudden, I started to notice the reaction in people when I would be talking, or I would hear myself say words that I'd think, I don't know what I'm talking about, but I know it seems to be more relevant to these people than it is to me. And then you would see a light come on behind their eyes. One lady said to me, you know, Gordon, when I came to you, she says, I actually wanted to really dislike you because you had this belief about a life after death, and how dare you talk to my daughter when I couldn't? And I understood that. And I said, no, I totally understand that. And she said, but now when I listen, you have given me a voice in heaven to talk to. She says, now it's up to me to find that. And I said, well, heaven's just a phone call away. I said, but you've got to find the number. You've got to find the way to dial it. Your heaven is waiting there for you with your loved ones. It's not going to go anywhere. And don't worry, there may be a queue of people in front of you, but you will get through. You will get through eventually. And even if, you know, you've got call waiting, there's another so many people in front that get through, and the one you want doesn't, they will get through eventually. Learning how people reacted in this world, grief, taught me more about mediumship than I ever learned in meditation or all the other esoteric skills. Watching the behavior of people during grief, and especially when they've lost children, was my biggest education in the importance of what a medium is here to do. And it's to try and teach you about the afterlife. Everybody has their own idea of heaven. So my job is not to let people be stuck on how their kid died. And this is something that's so relevant to me, that one lady said that the gift that I got was the message from my son on the other side through you, but it was more than that. She said, because before I spoke to you, what I had or knew of his death was what my imagination told me. And my imagination told me that my son was thrown through a window in a car and that his body was cut in half. And she says, and that's what I was living with. She says, but when I spoke to you and you said, oh, your son's here now, he's with your mother, and the two of them are here. And she says, you gave me a whole person back, and somebody who was active now, not lying halfway between a car window and the street. She said, I felt his life again. And he became alive again, and we grew past the accident. I cannot take an accident away, but I can give you tools to work beyond it. I cannot take the horrors of death away from people, but I can give you things to work away from it and to move on. Because on is where your loved ones are, not at the death. The death is where you are. They passed that a while back, and therefore you need to catch up with them. Where are they now? They are not at that place they fell. They are not at that place I go and put flowers. They are in here, in my heart. When you can find heaven in your heart, it's a complete heaven. It's a real heaven. That's where they are. I've often said to people that when you truly love someone, as a mother would love a child or a father would love a child, then when they die, it's not that they go anywhere, they dissolve into the heart of you. So you'll find them in your heart. Heaven begins there. When somebody says knock on heaven's door, that's heaven's door. You just need to know how to open it. And we open it by remembering how we love them, not how they died. How they died was one event in a life. How they lived was the entirety of their time with you, the episodes after episodes of joy, of annoyance even, of the things they did that got in your nerves, but the things that made them real. You can't ignore these things, because these are the parts of the life that we must honor. Our Queen put it best when she said the price we pay for love is grief. But the one thing we mustn't do is forget that. The pain that you feel is important. You honor them by feeling that pain and growing through it. It's because you love them, you feel it. But we have the medicine within us to heal us, and that's the love and the happiness and the joy that made you love them in the first place. And that's what we dedicate to. I've noticed that in most messages that I bring through from the other side, the spirit world are always trying to direct your mind to happy events in their life. And immediately they're trying to wake up your mind from where you're stuck in that moment of death and loss and things like that. And they want you to see the living them. The living me, not the one that died. The body died, but the living me was inside that body, and the living me is still here in an afterlife beyond it. That is what they are hoping to direct you to, that special place. As a medium, I have been really fortunate to experience things like out-of-body experiences, even astral experiences, moving away from this physical body. I think in such occasions, I was allowed to experience what it felt like to die for a moment. And my spirit guides, my spirit team, whatever you want to call them, allowed me to get that experience so that I could really assure people the death process is nothing like we think in this world, honestly. It's really, really not. And I say that because spirit, when they would come back so whole and complete. And people would say, but aren't they suffering? And I'd say, no, suffering belongs to this world. People in this world suffer. And we come into this world to experience confinement, sadness, anger, jealousies, because that's all part of the human journey. The moment this body goes and the emotional body that surrounds it, a breath away is freedom. And that's where the spirit world is, in that beautiful bliss that vibrates at a higher frequency from this. And that's where our loved ones go who have passed to the other side. If I could assure everybody what I know, it would take away their fear of death to some degree. If you could lose your fear of death, you can lose your fear of life. And that's the big scary thing for most people, is life, not death. Life is more frightening than death, trust me. Death you only do once. Life goes on all the time, and it can be a difficult one unless you find that freedom from suffering. That is the whole key to this. It's like one of my beautiful experiences I had with a couple whose little boy died when he was only 3. And his name was Charlie. It's funny, I never forget these. It was 25 years ago, I think, that little Charlie first popped through. And his mother and father were sat there and they just were in a daze. You know, that you all know that moment where when you know that you've lost your child or somebody very close to you, and your mind seems to move out of your body for a moment, and you don't feel that that you're in a kind of world with everybody else. It's almost like you're there and the world's going on there. So you hear everything, but you're actually in an in-between world. And you're like, you can't really be bothered with what people are saying because they're not where you are. You are quite literally beside yourself with grief. That term is real. She was beside herself with grief, meaning she was there. She was delayed from the world. She was saying, I'm going to make you something nice to eat and da-da-da, and then she would have the delay and then it would happen. Like, oh, it's like people who work on radio, they always get that 2-second delay. And that's what it feels like. This, I don't even feel connected to the whole world that I'm in. And I remember sitting here, and as this couple sat, I didn't know who they'd lost at that point, and I could hear this little boy saying, Mama, and he called his mother Mama and his father Papa, Mama and Papa, and he was saying, Mama, Mama, Papa, Papa, and I started to laugh, and I just said, somebody's saying Mama, Mama, Papa, Papa, and they kind of came out of their shock, the shock that they were in, the delay they were in, it brought them back into their body with a bang. And they sat and looked at me and I said, oh, somebody called Charlie's here. It's a little boy. And then we started to talk. And they were just, it was, I don't know, it was as if somebody put the paddles on their chest spiritually somewhere on their heart chakra, and it brought them back into this world. And it's one of the things I realized that with grief, if you can ever get that moment, that can be the start of your healing. It was for those two. And they now are great champions all these years on for people who have lost children in their way, because they know what happened to them. And making their experience so that others can grow from was a brilliant thing. Because again, one of the things I've learned, mediumship shouldn't just be about saying your loved ones are in the spirit world. It's actually about learning the lessons of life. And the spirit world know the lessons of life that they've got to pass back to you. They know when they have to come into your mind, and they know when they're not allowed to. And it's neither right nor wrong, nor good nor bad, but some experiences we just have to feel ourselves for a moment so that we truly feel it, so that we truly know it. Coming into grief, living through grief, and for some people, beautifully so, coming the other end when they wake up and the sun does shine again. That day when you notice the world and go, wow, where have I been? How long have I been out? Because that's what grief is. How long have I been like that? In this stasis, this in-between place where I don't know who I was for a while. I identified myself as a person who lost somebody. But there is a day when the sun shines again for everybody. I can assure you it really, really does. And even if it's not in this life, if somebody travels this life with grief, the moment it's your turn to go home, trust me, a light comes on and there they all are. And looking, going, we're here, we've never left. We've just never left. They don't leave us. They don't go anywhere. They're in a different state of being. And what we need to do is get ourselves into that lovely, energized feeling. One woman said to me, what have I done so badly that my son won't speak to me from the other side? And I said, you've done nothing. And she said, I mean, I've tried and tried and tried and I've tried and I've tried. And I said, no, I don't mean it that way. I said, what I'm meaning is, I'm going to teach you how to do it. You're doing too much of nothing. You're thinking about it all the time. Let me show you how to let go. And I gave her a little exercise to do every day of her life, or from that point on, and said, what I want you to do is I want you to sit down, train your mind for at least 2 minutes. That's a start. As we go, we'll get longer, but let's try 2 minutes of not thinking about the loss and the grief and that you're a bad mother, because you're really, really not a bad mother. You just keep telling yourself that. So let's find a way out of this struggle. I said, grief is something that is multi-layered. It's not just one thing. Grief isn't just grief. Grief becomes layered with depression. It becomes layered with hopelessness, helplessness, feeling disconnected. There's all these things that actually layer itself over your loss. And that's where it becomes very confusing. So sometimes we need a light in the dark, a guide that can take us through that journey to say there is actually going to be something just beyond this that's going to make it a bit better. And that's what I did with that lady, gave her a practice and got her to go back to the first early memory of laughing with her boy. And she, it's not there, the memory's gone. I said, no, the memory's there. Because a lot of you will know this, when you lose somebody very close to you, sometimes it's hard to remember them immediately after the death. Sometimes it's hard to see their face for some. Some find it hard to hear their voice. Some find it hard to remember the good times, the fun times, the happy times. This is the job of a medium. This is the job of the spirit, is to try to get you back to that moment of connecting with the living loved one. Now, the minute you can get your mind into that position, you are making your own connection with the spirit world. You are your own medium at that point. See, mediums only are there for those who can't do it for themselves. I've learned that we can teach you all how to do it for yourselves. That the heaven that people seek is my child in heaven. Absolutely. But you need to be there with them too. And I don't mean by ending your life, I'm meaning by starting a new way of looking at your life. And that is by opening up your heart. Remembering the laughter and saying it's okay to laugh about the things that were funny. Why would you not? Why would you not laugh if your son came in and played rap music and annoyed the life out of you and you think, God, what I'd give now to hear one of those horrible rap songs? Yes, of course I would. But it's the thing, it's allowing yourself the permission to say it's okay. It's absolutely okay to laugh, and it's okay even to remember the times you called at them or said things that you feel, oh God, because that was the living spirit, and that's who you need to contact. And it's hard to do that when you can only see the dead person. So you need to look for the living spirit, and that living spirit lives in you first of all. That's the first door we open, is us. And when we can open that, the spirit can visit us. They can touch your mind, touch your heart, bring you some of the most beautiful experiences that will tell you, wow, I am always by your side. I am closer to you now than a thought. And it's finding those ways to think and direct the thoughts out. I was fortunate enough to listen to some incredible audio recordings of a seance that had taken place in the 1970s in London. And it was a medium there who practiced to sit in a darkened room where they had a voice mechanism. And the spirit could use this voice phenomena and come and speak directly to their loved ones. And it just so happened that this particular group who sat every week, once a week, was a group of mothers and fathers who had lost their children. And the medium kindly opened up his house once a week for groups of parents, and they would come regularly. And sometimes someone's child would get through, maybe only one, but their whole group would support that. Nobody would say, oh, well, I wanted it this week. Everybody supported, even if one got through a little message. Some weeks it would be 3 or 4 spirits would come and talk. And it was wonderful. I had to do a lecture on this particular phenomena. And I listened to 10 hours of recordings of these children talking to their parents. And from that, I gathered some of the most important questions that I thought parents needed to know. And the very first and most important thing, believe it or not, was, are they okay? That's the biggest question that was asked. Are they okay? Number one was, are you okay on the other side? And these children would come through and, yeah, of course I'm okay. And then they'd be full of this, full of vibrance. Oh my God, you can't believe what I feel. And the voices were incredible. Then they would, you know, the next question people would ask is, are you alone? No, my mother's here, my grandmother's here, my so-and-so's here. They were always bringing loved ones with them to say, we're never alone. They supported that thought. Because I suppose for a parent, one of the most difficult things to think was that your child was alone somewhere and no one with them and not okay. And these were the first answers that would come through. Now, some of the spirits would describe incredible houses that they were standing in, or the roads that were so lit, or gardens and paradises, whereas others just talked and described nothing. And I thought, wow, everybody's heaven is different. Everybody's spirit world is different. But then I thought everybody's life is different. And how we see our life is totally different. And what we learned through listening to all of this communication was that these children said, we are connected and we are part of a web, a complete interconnectedness that never dies. It just keeps growing and strengthens because of our loves, because of our experiences, because of our losses. And the very last tape that I listened to, a young man called David spoke to his mother, and this very, very educated and academic kind of English accent. And he said, Mother, he says, this will be the last time I make this communication with you. Not because I'm unable to communicate with you. I will be finding a new way of communicating after this episode. And the mother says, why is that, David? And the communication was this straightforward. Why is that, David? And he said, well, Mother, I will let you know when I find a new medium to work with. I'll be finding a different way of communicating in the future. And his mother said, oh, good God, is everything okay? And he says, I'm in a spirit world, Mother. Everything has to be okay. Are you okay? And it was lovely. And he said, here's what happens. I am conscious. He says, and when I first died, and here's the beautiful part, I felt I still had my body. And the people who greeted me, my grandparents, my aunts, my friends who had died, were all in a physical body like me. He said, but there's no time, and yet there's been a movement of such that I feel I no longer represent myself in a physical being. I am now energy, but that energy still has all the traces and connections to you and to the life that I left. With one thought from you, I am with you. Yet I can expand my mind and be learning on realms of higher knowledge. And now I'm learning, he said, to do it all in one episode, one moment. He said, so you must never, ever think that if I say I am changing in the other side, that I'm leaving. I'm just changing. Now, what nobody knew was after that seance, 2 days later, the medium who gave the seance died and went to the spirit world himself. But what it told me, the spirit world already knew he was coming over. And that was the way this young man told his mother. So they knew that this spirit friend was coming over, the medium was coming over himself, and therefore they would find new ways of coming through. The spirit world is very, very well orchestrated or choreographed, or however the way you would like to look at it. They know exactly what you need and when you need it. Even if you think you do, trust me, they actually know the real moment when they have to intervene or do something. And I know a lot of people will say, yes, but I need to get this message right now or whatever. And it's not mine to do. I'm only the medium. I'm only a messenger in this. But the spirit world themselves do watch over you, regardless of what you feel some days. I know it must be difficult when some days you just want a little sign, just any little sign. But just be patient a little bit longer because it will come. Spirit, don't keep that from you. If it's not coming, it's because there's something you have to learn. It's as simple as that. It's not any more difficult. It's not that they are in any way denying you. It's just that they're not allowed to sometimes. Sometimes we have to experience little things, but they are always, always there. They do not die. You will not die. Your life will go on and on. The love you feel for those you've lost hasn't gone. If anything, it's intensified and strengthened. If anything, it's gave you more cause and purpose to find a way to reunite your mind with their mind, your heart with their heart. And that, my friends, is what is the next stage of your journey. How to open up your door in you, that it is the first step to finding the heaven that your loved ones are in. The heaven, the same heaven that you will join them in. Because it's in you. We are heaven in ourselves. We just need to find it. Sadly, we are heaven and hell in this physical world. And we all know what the hell feels like. But the heaven also exists. Don't give up hope on that. Don't ever give up hope on that. Because heaven itself is a living state. And it's just the opposite of the down that you feel when something's been taken out your world. The heaven you feel on reconnecting with them is the lightness of self, the ascension of mind to this absolutely euphoric state of bliss that says, wow. I have absolutely no words to describe the heaven that your loved ones are in better than wow. And believe me, I just said it to a group that I was with the other day. Try to think if you were a parent that died and left your child behind. Wouldn't you want to come back and tell them, I'm okay? You would want to come back and say, please, don't ruin your life because I died. Make something of it. Help other people. The beautiful thing for me is that I get to experience you guys who are doing exactly what I'm saying, that you are helping other people heal. And you're doing it because you're not doing it as philosophers or religious people or whatever. You're doing it because you know what it feels like. And I don't think there's anybody more qualified than those who have experience. And it's to share those experiences with other people and to hold their hand at a time when they need it, because somebody held yours when you needed it. And it's to show them that there is another day up ahead that will start normally again at some point. And I don't mean the new normal that we all keep being told about. For anybody who's had a loss, normal will never be the same again. It's always going to be different. But you know what? The longer we live, there's so many new normals and we get used to them. My mother said to me when my father died, and she'd lost so many people in her life, some of my siblings and on, my parents, all of her brothers and sisters. And as we stood at this grave, and she said to me, I'm okay now, I can go, let them all cry. And I said, are you okay? And she said, son, when you get to my age, it gets easier. I said, really? She says, it gets easier. You become used to it. You become immune to it. And I went, wow. And she said, how many people have I put in this ground? Yeah, it gets easier. And I thought, oh my God. But what I didn't realize is that my mother had actually lost so many people in her life from being very young all through her life, that she said, if every time broke my heart the same way, she said, I wouldn't have a heart. You have to learn to get used to it. And to keep living and to keep going as a mother with other children, she had to do that. That's what people have to do. The alternative isn't nice. So we have to find the best that we can out of death. And usually the best we can find out of death is that there's life after death. Truly there is. The one way you'll know that is when it's time to go to that wonderful afterlife yourself and you're reunited. I think one of the most beautiful moments I will share with you before I allow you to ask questions is this. One of my great mentors was an incredible medium, a man who I would have trusted with my life. His name was Albert Best, and he was probably the best medium I will ever have seen in my life, in my living life. And that man went into a stroke condition just 10 days before he died. And he had no family. His wife and 3 children were killed in a bombing when he was only 24. And he lived the rest of his life as this widower, a man who never took another partner. And the loss of his children and his wife became his driving force with his mediumship to heal people, because he knew it, he really did. And he once said to me, you know, Gordon, the deeper you've been hurt in this world is the deeper you can heal. And I believe that, because Albert was the greatest healer I ever experienced, as well as medium. And it was on the eve of his death, myself, my friend, and one of Albert's best friends, 3 of us congregated at this little man's bedside. And there we stood, and we were all healers, we were all mediums. I held one hand. My friend James stood across the bed, he held the other hand, and the lady who's friends of Albert held his head like this. And we just stood in silence, probably sending out loving thoughts, certainly not trying to keep him alive. We were actually saying, come on, Spirit, open that door, let him go. He's done his work here, he's served. And 10 days in a coma, and then all of a sudden he stirred and he sat up and he looked, and I looked at the bottom of his bed and my mouth dropped. And I could see a light building, just a golden light. It got stronger and stronger, and I could see images in it. And he said, my wife's here, and my children, and tears just ran down his eyes. And this was 50 something years after they had died. And he said, oh, good God, they've come. Oh, they've come. He says, you have to let me go. And I said, Albert, we were never holding you. Just go. And then he died. He just took a breath and went with them. And the doctor came in and he just looked at the scene, and this man was sitting up dead, and we were all holding him. I'm not sure if he thought what was going on, but and then he looked at me and he said, he was quite an amazing man, wasn't he? And of course we couldn't speak, we just went, yeah, yeah. And we said, he's gone, doctor, and we left him. And it was a beautiful thing. Now for me, that I think was one of the most important moments of my life as a medium, to witness this wonderful moment of heaven coming to receive somebody to take them home. And that's exactly what happened. And I know that Albert's wife and children didn't just arrive at the end, they were there from the very beginning and through every step of the way. So that, my friends, is life after death. Life after death shouldn't really be called that, it should be called life after life. And I'm sure Dr. Raymond Moody will agree with me tomorrow. We'll call it life after life. But anyway, I am more than happy to take your questions on anything life after death mediumship related, and do the best I can. So whenever we have a question, Jackie, just you tell us.
Okay, Gordon, so while you were speaking, there were a few things that came through. There was a person that really didn't want to speak but wanted to ask a question, and as they asked it, you started to answer it. And it's a parent that's been on this journey for 18 months, but still hasn't received a message from her child, either directly or through a medium. And I know you started to touch on that earlier. I don't know if there's any more you want to say about that.
Well, yeah, because I always feel the time thing in our world seems most important. It seems so important. I need to get that message. I need to get that message. But what I'd said was, this is the moment where honestly you've got to be patient a bit, because the spirit will be looking for the way that actually is your message, that it's the message that, wow, that's the way you need it. Because if you force some medium to sit down with you and try and it's not coming, you'll be disappointed. Therefore, trust the spirit in this one, because I know for a fact that the timing that the spirit have is way better than ours. And just relax your mind for a bit and say, okay, I'm going to trust in you and know that when the right moment is there, you will bring me that message. And again, this is why I was saying earlier, Jackie, that For you to become your own medium and feel it in your way, it will bring you much more benefit than some medium going through words after words. And could it be this? Could it be that? Let it occur. Let the thing happen. Relax with it if you can at the moment. Say, I'm going to trust you over there, and I know you're going to bring me the message. Communicate with your loved one, but don't demand of them. Just say, whenever you're ready, I'm here, and I'll take whatever signs you give me and see if that helps. Failing that, next time I'm on, I will try and do a reading for them.
Okay, fabulous. The next one we had Wendy. Wendy, I see you've found how to raise your hand, which is great. If you can unmute and ask your question of Gordon, that would be fantastic.
Hello.
Hi, Wendy.
Hi. You mentioned that death is just once, and from what I've been learning, and I really believe the dog I have, my son has come back in some form through our dog that we got after his death. Because he acts just like my son when he was his personality and everything. So can you elaborate on that?
Sure. Well, I mean, one death per life, you will have people who say, I died several times, but they obviously didn't totally die if they're still here. So when the actual death, the separation comes, that's the death. But to live again, that's what we call life after life. So the other thing I would say, Wendy, and it totally comes to my mind, is that your son can most certainly influence your dog's mind to behave in certain ways. I'm not saying that it's your son, but your son's influence around that dog from the spirit world, and especially to make you laugh. That, I think, is something that your son's doing with your dog. So your son's spirit, I believe, is in the spirit world around you, but he can more than easily affect your dog in ways that it makes you laugh and think of him. That's how I would read that one, Wendy.
Okay, moving. I've got some in chat, but if we can take some more of the virtual hands. So Sherry, good evening or good afternoon. Would you like to unmute, please, and ask your question?
Hi, Sherry. I think
Hi, can you hear me?
There we
Yes.
go. Yes.
Hi, Gordon. My son has the same name as you. It's a
Good name.
beautiful name. I wanted to ask, do our children that transition by suicide, do they have a different transition process? And also, can you advise us on how we can communicate directly with our children?
Yeah.
I love signs, but I would like to actually be able to have a conversation with my son again.
Well, Sherry, the first thing I would say, to my knowledge and based on my experience of working with spirit who have taken their own life, they're in no different place or in any different state from any other spirit being. And I believe that the effect of suicide is felt in this world more than it is to the spirit. So that would be how I would look at it. And I could go on and on and on, giving you testimony after testimony of things. There's no point to that. That's the simple answer. So his transition would be no different, because the moment we leave the bodies, they're coming out of the physical body, out of the emotional body, out of the astral body, as we start to dissolve out of this world, then you can't take your physical pain with you. It's gone with that body. You can't take your emotional pain with you. It's gone with that body. So all you've got is the living memory of you, the being, the entire being, and it's an entire thing, not one part. Suicide would be one episode of a life. So it would be every episode would be there, encompassing the whole spirit, the whole soul. One of the things I would say, Sherry, can you sit with some other people in a little group? Are you able to do that? Even if it's just two of you, to sit together and meditate, or not even just meditate, but just sitting together to create an energy.
I can try.
Well, that's how I would suggest to you. But you can have any conversation with your son. But what I'm trying to say is I would need, or somebody's going to have to help you to be open enough to register the answers. Because like if you're talking to me as Gordon right now and saying, Gordon, are you okay? Now, if I'm in spirit and you don't know how to feel what I'm doing, it will be lost on you. And this is what I say this to everybody, because some people say, why are you not communicating? And they are, and they're like, why are you not feeling what I'm giving you? So a lot of people pick up, and this is what I mean, Sherry, because some people pick up a feeling from the spirit world. They don't hear them. Hearing spirit is a very, very rare thing called clairaudience. And even among mediums, there's very few of us who are clairaudient. So listening for a spirit voice is something really difficult for somebody who doesn't know how to do it. Feeling. So if you give Gordon the opportunity, if you say, if you're really there, darling, I'm going to sit just quietly. Just let me feel you. Let me feel a presence, anything, and I'll take that as a yes. So Sherry, we build a communication. And this is what I was doing with some of your group earlier this year, trying to teach them how to sit with their loved ones. And nothing special, just feel them. And the minute you get that feeling, Sherry, the first feeling, and I'm saying feeling because I think that's how you're going to get Gordon through, is by feeling, by sense, not by sound. I mean, it can build into sound the more you get used to it, but ask a question and ask him to be present. Let me feel your presence. That's a better way of doing it. Just let me feel your presence. That's all I need. And ask that one thing. And once you've got that answer, you've started the communication. That's the first contact. And then we build on that. And then you can say, look, I'm going to ask you something about what's going on at the moment with your dad. Do you know what's going on with your dad? And if you feel that, you go, oh, you do know. So it's a bit like the early mediumship when they used to knock. One knock for yes, two for no. Only you're doing, if I can feel your presence, you start to build the communication like that, Sherry. Does that make sense?
It absolutely does. Thank you.
It's a process, and I wish I could say it's going to happen like this. But do you know the feeling that I get here is a really good-looking guy standing, and I'm seeing like a shirt opened, and there's a picture like this that he's shown me, and it's his shirt's kind of opened up here. And it's, I don't know where he is at this point, but I just see this photograph of him in my mind, and he's smiling and he's leaning in a kind of casual way, and it's like this, and I just want to kind of, I don't know what I'm doing with my hair at the moment, but it's as if I'm doing, oh God, look at the state of that, but it's as if he's doing something with my hair to show me in this photograph, and he's leaning, looking rather cool. But the top part, I think he's got a t-shirt on under the shirt. That's what it is.
That's exactly the photos that I have of him towards the end of his life are exactly like that. And his hair looked exactly like yours does right now.
Well, that's why he's doing that, to make my hair look like that. It's so good when they've got the props, you see. A Gordon for me is a Scottish song. You've got to think it or find it. A Gordon for me, a Gordon for me. If you're not a Gordon, you're no good to me. An old Scottish song, you should look for that.
I will, thank you.
A Gordon for me. Okay, there you go. And things will change, Sherry, I promise you. I get a feeling that he is trying really hard to get through. He will.
Thank you.
Who we got, Jackie?
Okay, Kay, good afternoon. Can you unmute, please, and ask your question?
Hi, Kay.
Are you okay, Kay? Can you unmute?
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
You go. Yes.
Hi.
Good
Hi,
afternoon.
Gordon. When a baby or a child dies and years go by and then you connect to their spirit, have they aged to the present age that they would be, or are they the age they were when they died?
You know, Kay, age has no real bearing in the spirit world, but in some cases, like I'll give you an instance. When I was young, my aunt's little boy died when he was 10, and I was the same age as him, and we grew together. And then Stephen died, and as he got older, or as she grew older, sorry, she used to say, I wonder what Stephen would look like when I was 21. She'd say, I wonder what Stephen would look like now at 21. I wonder what he would look like. So her mind was like this. And it's when I think I must have been about 28, and she went to a medium in London, and the medium said to her, I have a young man who shows me what he looks like when he's 14, 21 and 28. She said, but he didn't die at these ages, but he wants you to see an image, and she described him. And what I feel there, Kay, is that the spirit can show you the image that you would like to see them at. Okay. So sometimes, just the other day, I was giving readings to a woman who lost 2 children, and I said, I have 2 babies here. And I described them as babies, and I said, but these babies died 20 odd years ago. She said, yeah, they did. And so in that case, she saw them still as her little babies. But if she needed them to be grown, spirit can manifest into different images that we need. So, but there's no time in the spirit world, so they wouldn't age unless They just wanted to show you a form for the sake of evidence that would be like
Well,
that.
my
too.
grandson, when he was 2 years old, he came to me and told me he saw her. And she would have been like 18
Yeah.
then, and she was a baby when she died. And but
Yeah.
he knew it was her.
And again, but you know, that's the thing, it's the knowing thing. It's like me, when I once saw my father, and I saw him as a young man. I never knew my father as a young man because I was the youngest. So my father was in his 40s when I was born, but I saw him spiritually in his 20s, and he looked incredibly different. But the feeling in my heart told me who it was. I thought, God, that's my dad. So yes, you know the soul, if you know what I mean.
Right.
So the aging thing, I think, is for personal requirement.
Thank
Maybe more
you.
than anything. You're more than welcome, Kate. It's a pleasure.
Okay, Gordon, we had a question on
Sure.
Communicator from Tracy. She wanted to know your thoughts on using a pendulum to connect with loved ones. She feels that she's having a connection with her daughter and answers from her, but other people are trying to persuade her it's just all in the imagination. What are your thoughts?
Because something happens in your imagination doesn't mean to say it's not real. No, the first thing I would say. But look, if somebody's using any means of communication too much, then it will just become more obsessive. So don't do that. If you want to use a pendulum, it's absolutely fine. It's absolutely fine to use any form of mediumship as long as you're doing it authentically, correctly, at first, your way, and being very, very practical and judgmental to yourself. Don't just accept things because you want them to. So that's what I would say, you know, don't make the pendulum go over things that you want it to be. Oh, look, I'm getting a new house. Oh, good, I'm going to get a new car. You know, some people do that. Oh, look, this pendulum says you'll get a soulmate. Oh, the pendulum says, no. What you've got to do is you've got to treat it with respect the same way you would with any form of spirit communication. So do it ritualistically, do it properly, and don't overdo it. Do it at times when you need to do it or feel you want to do it, but don't do it obsessively. Treat it with respect once a week or something like that, like any normal spiritual practice.
Okay, hopefully we're all right to keep going, Elizabeth. I've still got some more questions. Is that okay?
I'm happy to
Okay.
carry on.
Okay, so Purnima, good afternoon. Would you like to unmute and ask your question? Purnima, would you like to unmute?
Hey, thank you very much,
Hi, Purnima.
Gordon and Jackie.
Hello, my friend.
I recently lost my son just 13 weeks ago, very suddenly. And I'm really, really trying hard to feel him and connect with him. I'm really worried. I tried the pendulum, it won't move. I tried meditating, I can't see him.
Do you know, Purnima, can I offer you some advice? Don't try so hard right now. I know it's tempting to want to keep trying, but do you know what would be the nicest thing you could do for your son right now? Is to do a practice for him. So do you know it would be really nice to do a practice? It's one of the things that I was taught through the Buddhism that I learned, was that rather than trying to get answers, because first of all, your son in the spirit world is absolutely fine, so you don't need to worry about him in the spirit world. But one of the best ways to communicate with him is to do a practice. Are you aware of something called Tara, the Tara mantra? Om Tari Tutari Turi Soha.
No, I will look it up.
Om Mani Padme Hum. Are you aware of that?
No.
Anyone, but the green Tara is probably the best one that you could do, and it's really easy. Om Tari Tutari Turi Swaha. And you just say that. Think of your son and just repeat that, repeat that, repeat that. What you're doing, what we do is when somebody's not long died, we do that prayer for them. And it's that their consciousness becomes as clear as it can be. And that's what you're doing. And I would suggest rather than trying to kind of struggle, because that will just make you feel frustrated. You know what I mean? If you relax a little bit and do this, then you're doing something. You're sending a powerful vibration to your son, and it's giving him an energy to work on. While you're doing Tara, don't look for anything, but just be aware. A bit like I said earlier, try and be aware as the energy you're building, you'll feel the vibration. And then just if you ever get a sense that your son's there, just say, I can feel you. Acknowledge him. Always acknowledge, I feel you. Because you're building a powerful spiritual prayer doing the green Tara mantra. And we do
Okay.
that for the Book of the Dead for when people pass.
Okay.
Do that,
Thank you very
and
much.
it will happen. And you know, Parina, do you know how many times in my life where people have said, "Can you not get a connection? What's wrong? Or is it too early?" And what it is that sometimes they need our energy to settle. So you're not doing anything wrong. It's just if you keep trying and not getting success, you'll feel really let down. So give yourself a break from it, relax, and just try that little mantra for a bit until your mind, your own energy starts to settle a little bit. And just
Okay.
say, again, like I said earlier, ask them, I know you can get here, but I'll wait. Get here when you can. That's
Okay.
it.
Okay. Okay.
And
Okay.
do the
But
mantra
he's
for
okay,
them.
right? He's
Yeah.
really okay.
Yeah, absolutely. What's your boy's name? And I'll put him into my mantra when I do it with the Buddhists. So
Sreyash, SREYA.
yeah, sure. Yeah,
SH.
yeah.
Thank you very, very much.
You're more than welcome. We'll do the whole mantra for him. Everything, we'll do the Amasaba thing, which is
Thank
beautiful.
you.
And hopefully that helps him to help you. That's what we'll do.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
No worry.
Very
No
kind
worries.
of you.
You're in my thoughts already, Farina.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, next we have Anna. Anna, good afternoon. Would you like to unmute, please, and ask your question?
Good evening or good afternoon, Anna, or good morning. Which part of America are you in?
You're still
Anna.
muted at the moment.
I know.
There we go.
Hi.
Hi, Anna.
I'm in United States of Virginia.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah. I wanted to ask if do they remember their last moment? My daughter died of suicide, and I'm curious if they will one day she would be able to answer me like what her last thoughts were, if they would remember that moment.
Do you know she will, Anna? And whatever those thoughts are, in the spirit world, you can't not know things. You can't. So yes, and you know, I would assume that when you're ready to know that, that there'll be a moment where that has a better value to you than it would have right this second. I really do. I don't, or even as you're nodding your head, I don't know why I want to talk to you about a tattoo.
Really?
idea what she's talking about. She just mentioned the tattoo.
Yeah, me and my two daughters are going to get a tattoo of her name on our arms.
Well, then go do it. She just gave you permission. That was weird, but there you go. But yes, and she's cool. She is cool.
Another question I have is she left. She had two kids. Do they see her?
But
would they be able to see her?
would, yeah, but they'll see her. But can I ask you something that you make sure you keep her alive in their eyes and in their life? I feel as if you want to just and talk happy memories and love and joy and earrings, Mom. I don't know why I have to talk about your earrings, or what's she talking about now? She's talking about earrings.
Earrings?
Yeah, earrings.
Oh, yeah, my daughter wears her earrings, and she was just
That's what it is. Good.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
But she's here. She's absolutely fine. And there's a grandmother with her in the spirit world. I feel a grandfather. There's a dog. I can hear a dog barking. So yeah, we're all together, and we are happy over here. So we're here. And I don't know if it's Lisa or Lee. There's a name like that she's saying. It starts with Lee, but I can't quite make it the whole thing. But she's there, my darling, and keep talking to her because she'll come.
Oh my God, thank you so much.
She'll come.
It's my daughter's name. She just asked me that.
And that's okay. Good. Do you know, I always tell people this. They do remember their names, trust me. But she's with you. She really is with you. And you know, next month there's a cake. She says, I'll be there when the cake's there. That's okay. I'll be there. Okay? She'll be there. And it's not to make you cry. It's you're more than welcome. You're more than welcome. I wish I could do more. I really do. I really wish I could.
Oh, you've done so much. Oh my God, thank you so much. It's your son's birthday. We were just playing in his birthday party.
Well, there you are.
Oh my God.
She's not dead. She can see things. She can see everything. So
thank you so much. Thank you.
She'll help from where she is, Anna. God bless you, darling.
Thank you.
Okay, Susan,
Thank you.
thank you for waiting so patiently. Can you unmute, please, and ask
Hi,
your
Susan.
question?
Yeah, just press
We
unmute.
go.
That's you, Susan.
I think I'm unmuted. It's amazing to hear you, Gordon. What you say resonates so strongly with
Do I
me.
hear a good Australian accent there?
You're Kiwi, New
Oh, you're
Zealand.
Kiwi. Ah,
Yeah, transplanted to the
even.
US.
Wow.
Yeah.
Fabulous.
My son, Peter Kieran, adopted from India. He took his life. The day it happened, he wrote messages. And I'm wondering, do they carry their emotions with them when they pass? He left loving messages to my husband and his
Yeah.
brother. My message was not so kind, and it remains very painful.
But you know the other thing, Susan, here's the thing, and it's something that we don't understand fully in our human self while we're in this world. But the moment your son goes over there, he will have an absolute understanding of his life. We all do. We get this epiphany, if you like, this soul book. You cannot not see it. If you don't see it, you'd come back again with complete ignorance of what you'd done, and you'd just be destined to repeat the same nonsense again. So yes, he will. Yes, he will. And remember, we hurt the ones we love. There's a reason why people do that, you know, because sometimes they need more love from you than from anybody else. And that's sometimes the way they do it. But the feeling I get is that he knows exactly everything that he's done. And he knows everything he's said and felt and thought. Now, the thing is there's a reason for this. And you know, it's awful the way we are as human beings, because we do things that are not always explainable in a moment.
Yeah.
But with hindsight, they will be. And though you go, what good can come of that? It's not always, it's just sometimes an answer comes of you who becomes the bigger person. You know, there was a case over here in the UK where a little boy was murdered, a little schoolboy. And it was a needless, terrible, senseless killing, no purpose to any of this at all. No race, no anything, just needless killing. And that little boy's mother went on the news this night, and I think it was one of the most beautiful things I saw. And she just cried and said, you know, I lost my boy. She says, but I refuse to hate the ones who did it because they were just boys. She says, and I'm not going to allow that. I won't allow myself to hate them, because then my life is condemned to hate for the rest of it. And I will not have that. And I think when we get a message in our life like that, Susan, that there's something we have to grow above and go, right, I will shine. I will go beyond this. I will find a bigger part of my spirituality. And there's just something like that resonates with my mind at the moment, Susan.
Yeah.
So it's like for you to find, you might not find the logical answer to it, but what you might find is something deeper or bigger in yourself that says, do you know what? That took me to that place.
Okay.
And therefore we see purpose in it. Never at the moment, but usually as time goes by.
Yeah, this one's been really difficult.
It is, yeah, and it is, and it's one of the horrible ones. I hate to say that nobody says it's going to be easy when they get something like this, but the thing is, it helps you to find different levels of yourself when you measure such things, and I get a sense that you're in the process of doing that.
Yeah.
But there's only so much you can measure of you. Then you just have to look at other people. You know, I just said, wow, that was incredible. I just had a picture of the American psychic and medium Sylvia Brown. Do you remember Sylvia? Do you remember Sylvia?
Oh, yeah.
She just popped into my head there. Oh my God. I used to work with Sylvia, and I heard her saying, it's not about being wrong or right, it's about doing the right thing. And that's a message from Sylvia to you.
Thank you.
It's not about being wrong or right, what's happened, what's been left for you. It's about you doing the right thing
Thank
for you.
Yeah,
You're welcome.
Peter does weird things around the house.
And do you know what? People want love from people in the strangest ways, Susan. And it's at the end of the day, it's only words. There's things deeper than words in your relationship. Look to them.
Yeah.
Look to them. They heal. The words can hurt.
Yeah. Thank
the
you.
actions and things. No, you're more than welcome. I will put you into my prayers as well, Susan. God bless you, darling.
Much appreciated. Thank you very much,
You're
Gordon.
welcome. You are welcome.
Okay, Gordon, we still have 5 questions. How are you doing?
Carry on. Just keep going.
Are we okay to do that? Okay, Nicole, if you can unmute, please, and ask your question. Good afternoon.
Hi, Nicole.
Hi, Gordon. I just have a question. My daughter passed away a year and a half ago,
Sure.
and since then I've had many dream visits.
Lovely.
My son, her younger brother, has asked why she doesn't visit him.
That's the thing that, again, maybe in the simplest terms, Nicole, she will know why she doesn't visit him because it might have a different effect on his mind.
Right.
And therefore she's choosing you as the messenger.
Okay.
And that's like people saying to me, why are you getting a message about my child and I'm not? Because my mind is geared and prepared to that, and your mind can probably handle it, Nicole. But
Right.
it might, I'm only saying it might, I'm not saying it will, it might cause a different effect on your son's mind. So just ask her, when you come into my dreams, can you pass a message to your brother?
Okay.
And see if she does that. Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
Wonderful that you're getting that. That's a really lovely way, Nicole, that they communicate is through dreams, because you're in that in between place, between
Yes.
sleep and awake. Beautiful.
Thank you.
Long may it continue.
Okay, next we have Kathy. Good afternoon, Kathy. Can you unmute, please, and ask your question?
Hello, Kathy.
Hi, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
My son, he's actually my stepson, but he died by suicide about 5 months ago. He had a very, very, what I would call tragic life in
Susan,
that.
Kathy, do you know what? I can actually hear this guy, and he's telling me that he ended his own suffering.
Okay.
It's not taking his life. He stopped his
Okay.
suffering. Does that make sense?
And that's, yes, it does. And that's
Yeah.
kind of the way we viewed it, because for
Good.
20 years, he had a schizophrenia diagnosis.
Yes.
And for 20 years, he fought that, and he fought
Yeah.
it so hard.
Well, do you know, in karmic thing, and I mean this from the practice of Buddhism, when we end suffering, it's different from taking a life.
Okay.
To end suffering. Now, I'm not being funny, but if we have an animal that we take to the vet because we need it to stop suffering, we do it with animals. And I just
Yes.
feel as though he felt the suffering's not going to end. So he stopped his suffering.
I'm really happy to hear that, because, you know, he's had several relapses. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, my granddaughter's in the
Oh,
background.
don't never apologize about children.
But he had several relapses, and
Yeah.
this past year he was not able to come
And
out of it.
Do you know,
And
Kathy, how many people, Kathy, in the world right now, because of the way the world is, there's such a burden on people who are finding it difficult in a normal situation. So
right.
I think there's going to be a lot of people in the world who right now find it so difficult to face things. Do you know the other thing, when somebody's really sensitive like your son, some people are born sensitive like me and it turns into this. Some people are born sensitive and the world is abrasive and they aren't able to channel it out. So they kind of hold it all in their space, and that's a lot to take. So the
Yeah.
world can be hard on some people.
Okay. I'm finding it really difficult to have the good memories. You know, I remember the 20 years of, and although I'm a stepmom, he was, you know, he's always lived with us. I've been his mom for 32 years, you know, so, but it's those really tumultuous times that I remember, and I want to remember all the good things, but I'm having trouble with that.
Well, do you know what? If anybody's having trouble with something, with thoughts, and this is to everybody as well as you, Kathy, that there are times when the human mind cannot find what it needs to heal itself in that moment. Just the way we can't always cure ourselves from a common cold. We are human, and there are some times, but I have to say the one good thing about being human is that everything is impermanent. So this drought of having the depth of memory to find the good stuff right now, that will pass too. That's
okay.
impermanent.
Good.
It will.
Good.
Well, do you know, you've had a really horrible time in the last 3-4 months. There's been a lot of stress around you. It would be hard for anybody to find the good stuff right now, but please believe me that I talked about it earlier, that day will come when the sun will shine and you'll go, something's changed. You'll turn a corner, Kathy, I promise you. You will turn a corner and go, wow, something has lifted. And you know, he is there and will be there with you. And he said, go to the sea for good memories. Go to the sea, the ocean.
Really?
Okay? Absolutely. That's where you'll find him. To the ocean.
Thank you so much. I appreciate
You're
it
more
so
than welcome,
much.
my love. You're more than welcome.
Okay, I just want to check with Elizabeth because you've got a big queue, Mr. Smith. So, Elizabeth, are we okay to continue for a while?
Where is Elizabeth?
Yes. However long, I guess maybe Irene should weigh in on this. It's fine with me. We have
Sure.
another
Oh,
meeting
how
at
could we can't say no to
2
Gordon.
hours.
Well, I'm happy to do another few questions, Jackie, because
Okay.
I'll tell you after that, then I will need to go. But I'm more than happy to promise you to come on and do something like this and just take people's questions and try to help folk. You know, I might have been better just doing that at the start than talking.
Well, we have had a question as to whether you're doing any courses or workshops.
Well, then there's an
for
easy one to
people.
answer. Then I will come and do. Guys, if you want me to do it, just give me a shout. Let Jackie know. Of course I will. And whether it's this kind of thing for you, I'm open to do that as many times as I can, because it's important for people, even just to ask a question. It is important. So.
Okay, so Adriana's been waiting patiently. Would you like to unmute, my lovely, and ask your question?
Hello, Adriana. Hi, Adriana.
Hi, can you hear me?
I can. Yeah.
Okay, hi. So on July 16th, I was pregnant, and I lost my daughter to HELLP syndrome and preeclampsia, and I'm having a very, very hard time, like getting through with the loss. And she was only 10 ounces. She stopped growing when I was 19 weeks.
Yeah.
And nobody could tell me like why I lost her. I've never had a kid before, so
So that was your first pregnancy as well. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm just having like a hard time like getting through.
But you know,
I don't
Adriana,
know.
I mean, this is so understandable. There is no absolute medicine right now for you that can say this is going to or that's going to, because it's only July. And the other thing is loss, and that child and you had already connected. You'd made a bond, so that bond is formed, and it will always be. But there'll be points where you get a sensation of it and a feeling, but when the moment's right. But there's no words in anything I could get or give you right now, other than to say, but the love between a living child within a mother is still a part of you. Because here's something I do want to say to you, Adriana. Your heartbeat was connected to that child. That was the first sound that child and first feeling it would ever have resonated with. And I just feel that she is still the rhythm of your heart. If you want to feel her, just put your hand on your heart, because that's what she would feel. And that's your way of connecting to her and talking to her and just saying, I love you. All you can say is, I love you. And wherever you are, I'll keep loving you. That's what
Okay.
you do.
I've only had one dream since it happened, and I was hallucinating that a doll was my daughter. And I don't know if that's like not necessarily the devil, but
oh, absolutely not. That's just pure psychology.
Okay.
I mean, it's pure psychology in that we often look at little babies like that as dolls. And also because you never got to hold it like that, then you would have, so you're associating like that. That is just pure psychology. Do you know, the thing is with devils and demons and things like that, these belong to the Middle Ages, the Dark Ages and things like that. And people today need to start looking at the love in their life. It's hard enough you've had a loss. Let's not invite other thoughts in. Just love. Just love your child. You can love your child from where you are. Just hold your heart and you will feel her. And you know what? It's not going to be easy for a while, Adriana. Nobody should tell you that, because it won't, love. But do that and remind yourself, you did nothing wrong here. There was no wrong in this. Sometimes life touches us, and then that's all it has to do for that moment. And she's already in the spirit world. Do you know, one of the things I always say to people, a child that has not come through this world is the closest thing you'll get to an angel. It's so pure, so clear. The brightest light in the sky is where your child is. So clear, untouched. Never no suffering of this world the way that people do. So
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
you're more than welcome. There's not a lot we can take out of death, guys. So whenever we find any little gem, take it. That's yours.
You're good to go,
we got-
Mr. S?
Yeah, like I'm going to do one more, guys. I hope you don't mind, but I will have to go after that. But I promised we'll sort something. I'll come on and do this again, and if that's okay with you. Who we got?
Okay, Asa, good afternoon. Would you like to ask your question?
Hi,
Hi, Asa.
thank you. Hi. It actually ties into what I think her name was Adriana, what she had just said. But back in December of last year, I started to feel like just death and real crazy. And I wasn't hallucinating. These feelings were just real, very real. And then in January, I started to feel like that. And I thought it was my mother that was going to pass away. And then I started to have, like, again, not hallucinating, but in my mind, I would think that my son's dad would call me and that I would say, oh, now you want to know, now you're looking for him, you know, now that he passed. And I would tell myself, don't think that, don't think like that. And it was twice. And then my son told me, Mom, I know I'm going to pass away soon. And I said, babe, don't say that because I can't live without you. And then he passed away early morning, February the 19th of this year.
Yeah.
And that night on the 19th in my home, my room smelled of a bunch of roses.
Yeah.
And I was telling somebody that this today because to me, I felt like it was so real and so special. And they told me you were just hallucinating. That's of the devil. And I thought it can't be. So it kind of touches on what you had said with the previous caller. And I thought, you know, it can't be. It's got to be real. I know I'm not on medication. I've been feeling everything. I'm not ever not feeling it. You know, some people say we're so numb.
Yeah.
I'm not numb. I'm in it. Like I'm totally in it.
Well, do you know that's the other reaction as it is that you can either be numb and out of it, or you can be in the depth of it. You know, you're really present in that moment. But for me, anybody who starts calling devil, they've got no other answers to say. Now, to me, that is psychology. And what it is your heart is fearing things at that point when it's coming to the loss of people and stuff like that. But you're being really honest and saying to your son, I can't live without you. This is real honest emotion. You are the living embodiment of your emotions, if you like, Asa. You are an embodiment of them. But the actual thing that you smell, the roses, I'm going to tell you why that's real. Because we can't imagine smell. You can't. Smell's a real thing. And you know, it's one of the realms of physical phenomena from the spirit world, because in order for somebody to smell something, there has to be a molecular structure change to the atmosphere. So your son found some way of putting roses there, and I'll tell you why, because roses were important. And I don't know if it's the name of rose that was important, but there's something to do with roses more than flowers. So that's why those flowers, or the scent of those flowers, was given to you. But there's also, I don't know if it's Rose or Ross or a name like that sounds like Rose, that's also connected there. But your boy's around you. And listen, any mother who's lost a child will know what it feels like, the pain of loss. And don't let anybody tell you silly things like that. Bad enough you've lost a child. How dare somebody try and bring in some foreign body of a devil or whatever? That's just wrong and it's unkind. Just you keep loving your boy the way you do, Asa. Nobody can stop you from doing that and feeling his pain. Remember what the Queen of England said at the Twin Tower disaster. Grief is the price we pay for love. It's only because you love him. And all these things will happen. But you're not going crazy. You're not in some other state of mind. That's what we call a mother's love. And it's because you can't reach into the spirit world and touch him that you're feeling all of these things. Your imagination is searching out in every direction to try and find him, my darling. He'll find you. Honestly, he will. He'll find you. He already has. He gave you roses. He gave you flowers. And that'll be his calling card for you. Out of the blue, when you're feeling a bit down, you'll smell a rose or see a rose and go, oh my God, that's my boy. and just trust that he'll do that for you. And I've just to tell you, happy journey. I don't know if it's your father in the spirit world, but there's an older man here and he's saying good journey. So wherever you're going,
Thank you.
stay safe.
Thank you.
Okay? We've got you.
Thank
You're
you
more than
so
welcome.
much, everybody. Thank you.
Take care, Asa. God bless, darling. And sorry, guys, I know there was a couple. Was there only one left, Jackie?
Well, we have Peggy still with a hand
Oh,
up.
go on, let's answer Peggy. We can't
Come
leave her
on,
hanging there.
Peggy. Good afternoon. Would you like
Come
to
on,
ask your
Peggy.
question?
Hi.
Hi, Peggy.
Thank you so much for doing this.
Oh, you're welcome.
I was just going to ask, so I had done, my teenage kids had done a Ouija board a couple years ago, and there was some crazy stuff that came through from our relatives.
I can only
it was
imagine.
insanity. And so we didn't believe any of this stuff before this. So the family came in and all the adults were like, what the heck? Because there was so much information coming out. They did it for 3 hours. Anyway, so long story short, there were some negative things that came through, like from what I understand. So I'm going to ask you, because my son has passed 6 months after that. He took his own life. I don't know if that's related to the Ouija board or not, but he had some coping issues and whatnot and depression. So what I'm trying to say is, should we truly fear negative energies coming through when we're trying to make connections in other ways, or Ouija boards? Are they a bunch
The thing I'll say about
negativity?
a Ouija board is just a board. It's what people do that make it crazy. There's no such thing as bad spirits. I've never encountered them. I know there's not. So negative energy coming through a Ouija board is negative energy coming through the people around the Ouija board. Now, a Ouija board is just a board. It's anything. You even get mediums who give people bad news and bad energy, and they're untrained mediums. I would be equally as negative about them as I would about a Ouija board. Ouija board's just a toy, but a toy in the wrong hands can be dangerous, and it's because of what people's minds do to that. Not spirits. The minds of people can create all sorts. I see no need for a Ouija board if you have a medium. That's the job of a medium, and a medium that is respected. Please, guys, be very, very careful who you call a medium. And the minute they start shouting bad things, demons, devils, bad news, this, you're not sitting with a medium. You're sitting with somebody themselves who has problems, because that's how problem people talk. So I don't think the Ouija board was anything to do with your son's passing, Peggy. I actually think or feel, I don't think anything. I very rarely think. I feel that there was so many other issues there. I really do. That it wasn't that. It really wasn't that. But don't let that go into your mind, because your son's in a spirit world where he's free of whatever pains and problems that were here. So that's the one thing that does happen when you go into the spirit world. That emotional body that haunted your mind, that's where hauntings happen, in our emotional body. But the moment that emotional body goes and we learn to be back in the spirit body, we heal the journey that we've just come through. So your son has healed that already. So as I say, I could make everybody scared of this and that. What is that about? Real mediums heal people. We don't hurt people. And there's bad stuff happens in this world, everybody. There really is. Every day there's bad things happen in this world. But we've got to look at how we can lift people's minds to the good things that happen in this world. We really do. And the beautiful thing I will say is, you have a network of wonderful people who help other people who have come through the same roads that you have. And that in itself shows me a light of hope that is shining brighter than anything else I know right now. In the middle of a very dark world, there's a lot of light shining in you guys. So keep doing that for each other. And God bless you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Gordon. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Wonderful. Oh my goodness gracious. And thank you for staying on for such a long time to answer all of the questions. And we are truly honored to have both you and Jackie here. And at the end of these meetings, we always ask everyone to unmute and to say thank you and goodbye. So if you all would like to do so, please do so for Gordon and Jackie. And I'm
Thank
so
you very
glad
much,
you-
Gordon.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you very much,
Thank
Jackie.
you, Gordon. Thank you, Jackie.
Bye,
Thank
everybody.
you so
very
much.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much,
Thank
Gordon
you so
and
much.
Jackie.
Truly,
Thank
truly
you.
appreciate it.
Jackie.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Stay
Bye,
safe.
everyone.
Thank you.
Bless you, darling.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
To everybody.